After 913 days since the first reported case of Covid-19, North Korea has now blamed its estranged neighbor South Korea for the spread of the virus. Remember, South Korea was one of the first nations to have offered help when Kim Jong-Un's regime had publicly accepted that it had found cases of Covid-19 infections within the North Korean territory, an offer that was immediately rejected by Pyongyang. And now North Korea has found a new reason to start a rift with its neighbor. And this time round, it has blamed the COVID-laden balloons found near the borders as the reason for the spread of infections within the North Korean territory. It claims that the first COVID-19 infection surfaced within North Korea after patients touched these alien things near the border with South Korea.
It was known that an 18-year-old soldier surnamed Kim and a 5-year-old preschool child surnamed Y had contact with alien things in a hill around the barracks and residential quarters in Ivory early in April. And they displayed to the clinic features estimated as early symptoms of an epidemic infection and tested positive for coronavirus.
And after announcing results of the investigation, a representative of the North Korean State Emergency Epidemic Prevention Headquarters ordered people to vigilantly deal with such objects, which they claim travel via wind and other climate phenomena. Further, the agency has promised to strengthen the supervisory and reporting system and has urged people to notify any kind of things that are left unattended. They also confirmed that the emergency anti-epidemic teams will strictly remove any foreign thing which may be out of place. Though the agency did not mention South Korea specifically, the claim mentions the involvement of balloons. And the two countries have been known to exchange balloon leaflets and humanitarian aid for several decades now. South Korea has denied any possibility of the virus entering into the North Korean territory via leaflets or any of these balloons that are regularly let off at the borders between the two Koreas.
정부는 우리 측이 전단 등을 통한 북측으로의 코로나 바이러스 유입 가능성은 없는 것으로 보고 있다는 말씀을 드리겠습니다.
All right, and now to give us more insights in terms of what exactly is the claim that North Korea has been making, and is this claim even something that can be substantiated? We're joined in by our correspondent Phoebe Amoroso, who's joining us live from Tokyo at this point of time. Now, Phoebe, on the face of it, the fact that we know as to how COVID-19 infection actually spreads, and can the COVID-19 virus survive on different kinds of surfaces, this bizarre claim by North Korea that the reason as to why there is COVID-19 infection within the North Korean territory is because of these balloons that were infected with the COVID-19 infections were let into the North Korean airspace. What do we make of these very bizarre statements that have come in from North Korea?
Well, firstly, this statement has been very strongly denied by Seoul, saying there's absolutely no possibility that the source of infection could have come from this way of transmission. And equally, the United States public healthcare officials there have said, while COVID-19 can be transmitted by touching surfaces, it is not a very common form of transmission. So that also casts some doubt on these claims. Now, what analysts are saying is that this move by Pyongyang is very politically motivated and it's very calculated. Firstly, it shifts the blame away from Pyongyang, away from the government and onto South Korea. So it's a way to absolve blame, but also to kind of stir up antipathy among the North Korean public towards neighbor South Korea. And then there's also another strategic approach in that a lot of these balloons that are sent from South Korea, some are from North Korean defectors that are sending anti-Pyongyang propaganda and even US money and portable radios. So this is not something that Pyongyang wants people to look at and to receive. So by warning people to stay away, that these are potentially dangerous, and until a kind of specialist team can kind of look at these objects, it's a way to basically turn people away from coming into contact with this propaganda.
Right, that's very interesting. Now, the question that I want to ask you, Phoebe, is, knowing as to how information in fact spreads, and as to how North Korea has been such a closed society, how many people within North Korea would in fact buy this rather bizarre allegation by the government there?
Sorry, how many people are infected?
The question that I was asking you was, people within North Korea, do you think they would accept this very bizarre explanation that the North Korean government has come forth with, that the COVID-19 infection in North Korea was brought in by these infected balloons from the south?
It's very difficult to say, but what we do know is that information is very tightly controlled within the country. And so there is a very strong narrative among the people, and that they may be likely to believe that this is the case. Certainly Pyongyang is very keen to deflect attention away from any actions of the government itself. And bearing in mind that the big outbreak within North Korea began around some big national celebrations in April. Now, Pyongyang first reported cases in May the 10th, but it's believed that these mass gatherings for national celebrations were potentially the cause of this widespread infection, this widespread outbreak. There's also another element to consider in that North Korea has been incredibly isolated by sanctions, and a few months before this outbreak was reported, it did start to ease some of its border restrictions in that it allowed freight transport between China and North Korea. And there's not been any link of the virus to China, but if North Korea was to make any kind of suggestions on that front, it would be diplomatically problematic in that China is North Korea's only ally. So it's very much worth deflecting any attention away from China and towards South Korea. As for how people are reacting to that, it's very difficult to get any voices directly on the ground.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Phoebe Amoroso, for joining us and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.